Good morning, Chris. How you been?
Morning. Pretty good. Um, I, as we discussed earlier, right before we started, is you know, when right now in my house things are getting emotional or a little intense, but at the same time, like learning to work with it and being okay with myself in the process of that. What I'm saying is, right now my dog is, we're not sure what its future is for the rest of the day, for all we know, and so. You know, figuring that out kind of it's feeling good. But it's one of those things that like I think, yeah. So you
Sounds
wanna
like sounds like you guys are being hopeful about the situation. You alluded to me that you have a dog that is about to go to the vet to be able to make sure to see what they can do, and you discussed about how much you, even though it might be semi-permanent, but how much you love it.
yes. It's a good partnership and a good friend is, always good to have by, and so it's, you know, we'll find out more about that. I kind of just decided to kick off on that one. So my name is Chris Eberly. I currently am working at Granger. Um, I also am going to school at MSUB, um, primary to do pottery, as it is,
Nice.
which is kind of one of those things that I grew up pretty much almost making fun of people with an art degree. And now I'm looking at it, I'm like, I think I might go in an art degree. And that's what's really funny about it is I just I think I like to challenge my brain of the reason why I was against something. So that way, when it comes to figuring it out more, like why I was against it, and then, stuff like that. And then I find out that, like, oh, I was just against it because there's this bias towards something that was up in the air, and I followed trend and followed the hate. And then I decided to look into it, and I might be pursuing an art degree here.
Dude, that's pretty sick. You showed me some of your pottery and also some of your paintings. The one that you showed me, with the woman that was pregnant when she pushed it up against her belly. That was amazing. The other one where the person where he had a couple students using their aggression against it. I was like, that is such a cool freaking concept because at the beginning stages, they're so soft. And then when you actually put it, I think it's in the kiln, they heat up and then everything just becomes permanent and hard and doesn't loses its masticity. Yeah.
Yes. Pretty much pottery, it's clay, and then you put on kind of like a chalky-like substance, which is the glaze. And then glaze is actually powdered glass, if you will, you know. It's got a lot of same materials in it, like the silica or whatever you would like. And then it becomes like a hard glass-like item. Now, there is a artist that I heard at one point, and I really like this saying is when I first started doing art, I wanted my art to like last forever. And I kept saying like, oh, I'm gonna make this last. It's gonna last so long. And I was really excited about how long I can make this and how strong I can make it. And then I just heard this artist, um, I just through like a social media platform. Um, and there's this old man, and he was just like, I love making my chairs, I love making my woodworking. And then somebody's like, yeah, to make it last forever. And he's like, no, that'd be boring. It's like, why would I want something to last forever? I want to keep working on things. And I feel like being inspired by the dumbest, simple things in my life constantly is something I look forward to. Like, I don't ever try to hide by being inspired. Like, being a man, men are usually afraid or embarrassed to be inspired by somebody or by something. One of my good close friends here in Billings, Montana, he is a tattoo artist, and seeing his house, seeing his lifestyle, like this can happen. People can follow dreams, and he helps inspire me. My wife inspires me. I got two kids. Um, it's one of those things that like it took a minute to understand what can inspire me to go forward in my life and not crumble underneath my own brain and like just give up and like think that like oh the world is evil and dumb and stuff like that. Um, so let's go ahead and start with a little bit of trauma.
Well, before we get into that, I
Okay.
just wanted to highlight that it sounds like you being a perpetual student is a big part of your recovery and your change. Where it's you said, "Oh, I used to make fun of the art kids, and now you are being a student again." You're going back to the childlike mindset. You are doing that across a bunch of different areas. I kind of don't want to go past that too quickly because it's so fucking valuable. It's so important to remember those wins because we can go back in time and we can be able to go to things that we cannot change, which are permanent scars in our brain. But we are the different ways that we are looking at the angles or different information that we're pulling from it based off of what you do with art, the way that you raise your kids, the way that you perceive the world. Like I know jujitsu has been a huge thing for you. The way that
Yes.
you age, then everything that's happened to you in the past, you have the opportunity to have a different relationship with it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the thing too. Like letting myself evolve, like was something that I resisted for the longest time. Um, and I am 39 years old, and I feel like I have only been evolving the last few years. Um, that's a long time of not of staying still in a mind that just like was stubborn, thick-headed, angry, um, trying to, you know, turn everything into a nail and trying to think I was going to be a cool like a hammer and that's how the world has to be. Um, and not trying to look at everything as a nail and or as something that might hurt me or hurt my family. When I stopped doing that, or when I brought that, I'm still in recovery.
Yeah.
I don't just like I'm done. Like I still constantly like. I mean, we were talking about like last time we met is letting the beast out a little bit at a time. Last night I would pace, like I got some stress, about my dog or like, and that can cause some other stress. So like last night I'm pacing, looking out my windows, stuff like that. And it's kind of like I wasn't really being aggressive. I was just kind of making sure everything is safe around me. And I would kind of sit for 5 minutes and then I would kind of look out the windows again. And I used to do that for like hours, but doing it just a little bit, paying attention to it, and then like bringing myself down. Um, and working on my coping skills, which are different for everybody. I'm going to go through mine throughout the process of this podcast and see if maybe somebody might relate to these coping skills, um, or
Be-
if it's just me.
No, before you actually before we get like I'm saying, because I know you're ready to start the transition. But what you just said was really valuable. You went back to the old set of skills that used to serve you. You'll talk about a little bit in the future where you were in survival mode, and you're doing these coping skills, which the beast, or what how you refer to it, is a thing. It was kind of your savior. It was your protector, and it was inside you. In these type of areas of your life, it's meant to give you some type of hope. Where with your dog right now, it's okay for you to go back to a primitive way of thinking of what you feel like so you can have a little bit of control. But then you're able to acknowledge it and you're like, oh, thank you, bud. Thank you for actually getting my back. I know everything else is crumbling. Let me make sure everybody else is safe. And it's kind of difficult when you're right there. You're right there in the moment. And it's just you have all these other emotional flares because you like being a guy. You have to be very firm. If you're looking at everything as you have the hammer, everything looks like a nail. If it's a screw and you start banging it with a nail, it's never going to stick into the wall. It's gonna break the wood. It's gonna break the sheetrock. It's gonna do whatever else it's gonna do. But yeah, thank you for just being in that moment with me.
Yeah, I very much agree with you, and like how many times you really use a hammer? I mean, like if you're a framer, you use it all the time. But like, let's say I'm in woodworking and pottery. I generally everything is like cut with nice. I like to do nice dovetails and stuff like that. I don't use much hammers when it comes to cutting a really nice dovetail, or I don't usually use a hammer on my table saw. So I'm implying that like I'm finding the world needs less hammers and just more fluent. And yeah, I like to go a little bit through the past, and so that way people can see what the subject matters that they might be either relating to, or maybe it'll just be gas coming out of my mouth. All right, born in Portland, Oregon. Yeah, moved here. Uh, moved up in Roundup, Montana. Um, for a little bit. I think it was like 6 or maybe a little bit younger. We made it to Billings when I was 6 years old because I got put into a foster family when I was roughly around 6 or 7 years old. The foster parent is Gail and Jerry Hannell. Really awesome people. Like pretty much heaven was built for people like this because whoever's in their crosshairs, they're gonna save and then just treat with love. Um, so to go backwards a little bit, um, you know, my biological mom was struggling with addiction. My biological dad, I don't know, he literally, I met him once in high school, and he was so cracked out in the basement of his mom's house. I was like, oh, that's what I'm from. See you later. So that was the first time I saw him and the last time. Um, but in the time, so like going back to when I was a kid, my mom would have these boyfriends, and these boyfriends were very aggressive and um, they had a heavy hand. Um, is the nicest way I can say it. They, I witnessed my mom getting hit backhanded punch full on by a full grown man that's like bigger than me and you. Um, and seeing her get back up and then telling me things are okay was just it tells me in my brain that when um somebody tells you that something is okay, when you know it's not, you will feel that nothing is okay for your whole life. Like if you think that that's okay and I should treat like that's okay, then okay has to be set this high. And this is where I now have to stay since I was a kid. Like I have to just like be like, okay, this is okay. This is okay being like this. Um, and so like I said, it's taken me a long time. It's still sometimes I still think okay is like this, like crazy and like this stuff and like stuff. But I saw a lot of that when I was growing up. I mean, like, golly, she can just what did finally it took one of her boyfriends throwing a cereal bowl at my head and then going to school all cut up and with like milk draining down, 6 years old. Um, because I think I called him like a prick or something. I can't remember. I was like trying to like a 6 year old trying to like bring my shoulders up and you know, and then here's the dynamic of violence. Obviously not okay violence. Now, um, Jerry Hannell heard about this scenario, what happened to me, and he went to my mom's boyfriend at the time and he was holding a bat and he was gonna smash his head in. I mean, like this guy sells furniture for a living. Like that's how soft of a person he is. He's not an aggressive guy, but he just saw something and he's just like, I'm gonna take myself out while taking this guy out. This kind of violence is not okay. But what happened is he chose not to. He did threaten violence. It took other people to see that the scenario was so real that they were able to get me out of the home, into Gail and Jerry's house, um, and then was able to start, you know, working on like what it took for Gail and Jerry to get me out of my shell is not until like adulthood. I would try to keep that thing so tight that like I was gonna be like nobody can ever penetrate and see an emotion from me ever again. There was one guy that beat my mom that saw my emotion, and I had so much hate for him. So like when it came to showing emotion, it was a no-go. You couldn't like you just don't show emotion because that means that it's a weakness, like you know how most men think. Or at one point they did, which is not healthy. And in that process, so Gail and Jerry, they had another foster son that was a lot older than me, and he was going through quite a bit of trauma at the same time, but he was not going to cope through his trauma. He decided he through acts of violence and stuff like that. He was in and out of prison for a good 14 years. Um, and so my role models were people that I came to their house because of violence. Um, you know, a guy that was beating my biological mom and then into a house with like looking up to a guy that was in and out of prison because of violence. And so like it just consumed my world. And I wanted everything to be violent, and I was so comfortable in violent nature for the longest time. You know, going older, he couldn't deal with his brain anymore, and he gave up and committed suicide. My older foster brother, and that one was really hard because he, if you look at somebody that you think is like the toughest person, and then you don't know what's going on in there, and then you're just like, how, you know, like you're too tough to do something like that. But it took me a long time to realize that it's just a shell, you know. I mean, it's that same shell that I was working on, and his shell was cracking and he couldn't handle that crack. But if you were to see the other side of what it looks like when it cracks and you give up the shell, yeah, it's like overwhelmingly awesome. Like throughout, you know, my teen years and stuff like that, I would smile and laugh and stuff like that. But being as an adult with a family and like feeling love and feeling the love from my foster parents, um, and it just took me a long time to realize that love, a lot longer than it should, because I'm a thick-headed person. Um, uh, it's awesome. It feels great, and it's one of those things that it's there. You just have to go for it. Like, and love is something that like, and that feeling of like acceptance and being okay, and not this okay, but like this okay is something that like it took a long time. And yeah, let's talk more about that, I guess.
I actually, when I was listening to it, I was thinking about how much the formidable years of your life, where safety was not being safe. I think I shared with you about how my dad was to my brother, and actually how my brother lived a little bit when we were growing up. And my dad only he practiced violence in a way where it was unfortunate. He would come in the middle of the night and start beating on my brother, but my brother never felt safe. Um, it, Something that's kind of taboo in a lot of ways to even talk about it. Your life, from what it sounded like, you were like that became an anvil. So when something hit you, it bounced back. And even when a soft touch to it, you were so cold and so hard that it was so hard to be able to understand. And you needed a person like Gail and Jerry to be like water, to be able to slowly penetrate those little cracks that you gave open so that they can be able to expand and grow. And you have a lovely soul the way that you're able to explain it because you understood violence. You understood the chaos. You understood that people will react and behave in a pattern that is to you is normal. To other people, it might feel like it's not normal, but to you, at that point, it was normal. You are a really nice guy after getting a chance to know you. And that is why you're able to go back before between both sides. And even though you're in recovery, mentally recovery, you actually understand what violence does. You understand how it actually shapes a young boy. Very similar to, let's just say, that pottery, the one that you had a bunch of the MSUB people start beating on. Your brain was that malleable. They started beating on it, so it deformed it. And then over the bit of time, they freaking heated it up. And now, what you had to do with other people, with Jerry, with your wife, you got to start breaking off parts of it and then start reconnecting new ones, new pieces. And go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
And then the more that you actually were able to change the shape, it wasn't able to hold water anymore. And it become frustrating. You want to run back to that that ununique shape, but then even then when you put it on, it still breaks off. And you kind of actually, as a young boy, you're just growing and fucking rough, bud. I
Yeah.
appreciate. Go ahead.
Well, to go off of that, I'll go off of that a little bit because that, so here as an adult and, you know, there's all that stuff in the past. Um, I tried looking tough, this and that. And then when that started happening, and it scared the hell out of me. Like when I finally was starting to feel, when touch was something that like was okay, when even I mean I don't know how my wife stayed with me because it's just she saw the human that was trying to like she saw the human underneath the shell that was like it would just peek through just a little bit, but then like I mean there were times that like it's full on and she would have to like I mean I don't know how she did it, but having some a bond there was just really helpful. And that bond doesn't necessarily have to be a wife. It could be a family member, it could be a friend. But it was so scary having a layer removed, just breaking in a layer removed to where um what it's called is a therapist use this, and I'm gonna steal this terminology, um, is re-traumaing yourself. Like you have the trauma, and then you're trying to work on it, and then just by bringing it back up and like thinking about it and stuff like that when you're opening up, then you just re-trauma yourself. And I would do that. Like as soon as I would try to like do that, I would just re-trauma myself to where, and then I'd remember myself remembering that, like remembering how that felt, and I would have to lock up, and it was one of those things I had to practice. Like I didn't like it didn't just like, oh, I remember this feeling. I remember this feels good. I had to break it up a little bit and then I would re-trauma myself, which for some is not very good. Maybe that helps you, maybe that won't. For me, it probably set me back because I would somehow re-trauma my own brain in the process of trying to feel again. um, Yeah, the brain is so tricky, and it's this thing that like you will always surprise yourself on what you're going to be doing to yourself when you're trying to work on it. Like, and the steps of getting there, I think, are really important. We talked about this to extent, reaching out and how to reach out, but the no, but and the toughest part is when you were talking about reaching, like if you're mentally struggling and you're thinking about that timeline, you were talking about, I'd like to come meet me at an 8 and a 9. Let's work. Let's do this. If you want to reiterate that.
So there's a few things that you were saying, man. It was the re-traumatizing. It was a part that I wanted to talk about too. Is when I went to the hospital for 13 weeks, I had to sit in the emotions of what I did overseas in the Marine Corps. And I had to start to write it down and then reread it until I didn't cry anymore. And then I had to write down what emotions I was feeling in it. But I was lucky. I was in a safe place that had a 24-hour nurse with me. I had social workers there. I had psychiatrists, psychologists. I had I was lucky because the Marine Corps, not the Marine Corps, the VA was able to really help me out. But when you were talking about when you're getting elevated and reaching out as a man, very different too, is because it's like when you don't feel safe. Ooh, is someone going to use this against me? How many relationships have we been in where people are like, oh, do you remember that time? Do you remember that time? And you're like, yeah, yeah, of course I do. I was there. I'm ashamed of that time. Thank you for reminding me of how much of a prick I was.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. But, and like I also shared with you too about 2 weeks ago, was when I work with people at my job, I remind them, like, so what I'll do is a dry run with 988 if I can tell that they're a little bit elevated. 988 is a suicide prevention hotline, and it's a crisis line. Press 1 for if you're a veteran. And I'll say, hey, let's actually call this number up together. I said, right now, I can tell that you're about a 4. But let's make sure when if you actually get to this high level, you know about this. Because if you're at a 9, ooh, everything gets into a pinpoint. You just can't see. You can't see in front of you. Hold on, I'm going to go talk to a stranger? They're going to put me in a white jacket. Screw that, I'm going to lose away all my rights. But at the same time, they're not realizing I'm about to lose everything else in this existence because of this very moment of control. And it's so hard when you're actually so used to not understanding what a 7 is to you, what an 8 to you is, what a 9 is to you. Until you get to that 10, you're like, fuck, I'm overwhelmed. And you don't realize that the whole time you've been building up this pier to be burned, where all this energy, where all this stress, where all this waiting just for that one little flashpoint to actually burn up. Well, I'll use this for example, what you were talking about before. You said releasing the beast a little bit. And kind of I get from it, it's just like, how do I just release some of that little bit of stress? You said that you want to paste the windows. You have a dog that is not doing well right now. You have you're a little bit anxious about coming on a podcast to talk about things in front of a bunch of people. You have a lot of other things that is going on in your life. The control of your kids' emotions, your wife's emotions, if when a dog passes, if it passes. There's like a lot of things in the back of your head where we don't put this into it. As a guy, we typically will be like, you know, I got to control everything. And then when everybody else is okay, but then I didn't go, psst. I'm still high. I'm still elevated. Everybody else is calm. Why are you so? Because I was trying to protect you guys. But how do you actually convey that? You don't always convey it so clearly because we're trying to be there for everybody else. And we feel like we are unworthy for other people to be here for us.
Yeah, so with that, and this generally happens. So I love the direction is when you're at that elevation, most likely, how are you going to respond when your kid just wants your attention? You're going to snap. You're going to be like, "What?" You're going to like your kid just wants to show you something, just to like relate to you. And you are putting yourself at a position to where you don't want to be at my level because this level, I'm constantly up here. You don't want to look up to me. Do you want to be this? You know? Um, and I was that. Like I was like, why would you want to look up to me? I'm constantly on edge. Like look at me. I'm an asshole. I snap sometimes. Like I get angry, I yell, you know? Like how would you look up to that guy? Like, screw that guy. You know?
I
Um,
do, but
I
you don't realize that you're Dr. Jekyll most of the time. When Mr. Hyde comes out to play, it's easy to be able to say, you know, I want to protect you from Mr. Hyde the whole time. But Mr. Hyde is not even out the whole time. You're spending all your energy where you have this young kid that just says, hey, Dad, look at these Legos. Dad, look at this stuff. And then all of a sudden you're like, why are they misbehaving? Why are they want this? Or why do they not even want to talk to me anymore? It's like, it's like, how do I actually get to them? Show them the good side, but not being able to show them the bad side. Like I discussed this before in other ones where Carl Jung talks about starting to learn your shadow side, starting to love your shadow side. I even mentioned that to you too. And with therapy, you learning why the shadow side is there. Why? What was it doing to protect you? What was it even? What was the gift that it was giving you?
I lost you for a minute there on that last bit. Um, I
I
imagine you
was
were talking about therapy.
I was talking about what is the gift that the shadow side would give you, like when you're actually elevated. What was it giving you? But
Yeah, well, I
anyways,
keep cutting out. It's either mic and okay. Yeah, I didn't get to hear much of that. It was a cutout, but yeah, with therapy and breaking down and then having help, like receiving help is something that is was really hard because growing up around men that they didn't receive help, and so I didn't know like people can tell me a good angle of where to get help and stuff like that, but my brain was so locked up that like you could tell me anything you wanted. I'm gonna go my own path, like I'm like I was solid and like or sorry, I thought I was, um, and it was just in one ear and out the other. Um, it took me a long time to get to there. I had to go through a breaking point. Now it sucks that I had to go through that, but at the same time, that was one of those things that like I had to go through. This was me. This what I'm about to talk about is something that I don't recommend for everybody, and it's something that you had to go through too. Is pretty much holding a tool to make sure that you don't go forward in this life anymore. Something to make sure that you don't ever um, yell at your kid anymore. You don't ever have to be at this level anymore. And it was just something that was so easy to just end it in 1 second. And at the time, it was harder to not do it. And that's what I chose to do is I chose to do the hard path. And that hard path that I was talking about that I actually enjoy, that's the hard path. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. And I know in my soul that like that especially a lot of you guys in the military might relate to is you guys don't choose the easy path. You literally sign your whole life away going one direction. And choosing a hard path of what choice of hard path, what's hard, sometimes that's where you got to waver. And that's what I had to do is I was choosing this hard direction of like thinking I was a man like this. And then I had to like, it really had to turn it and, yeah, breaks back and forth. But it came down to choosing everybody around me that I was able to start hearing finally and stuff like that because I was searching for the help at that point because I was choosing that hard path. Um, so I mean, you got to make a choice, and that's the thing. Like, and I hope everybody that would be listening that's going through that hard direction, I hope that they do the same thing. They choose the hard path, which is not going to be easy. It's gonna be hell, and you're gonna fail. I mean, like I get mad and I fail and I kick myself and I just like I'm a child and I throw a little fit because I just like I got holes in my walls. Like I because I punch holes. I I as we talked about I did jiu-jitsu for roughly 16 years. Here in Billings, Montana, I had a gym in 2006, I believe. I was a terrible business owner. I hated collecting money when people just wanted to come in and train, and so I went under in 2 years. I also moved away in like 2008 to Salt Lake City, where I trained under John Colquest and um, 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 James Gardner, and that's when I was trying to use what was you know violence, I guess, but that's when I was younger, and I was trying to use it in a better way, and just trying to turn that page more and more and more. And I feel like that one really did help my brain at the time. Like when I was able to have that dopamine release, the energy release, that violent nature in me, and then be around other people that like, I'm like, whoa, you like violence too? Hey, guess what I like? you know? And then going at each other, like we're just trying to like politely hurt each other, which is, jujitsu. You don't really want to hurt them, but you want to apply so much pain in a certain area that they want to give up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, not necessarily be mean, like try to break their nose and do all this stuff, which, kind of does happen by accident because people get aggressive and they get carried away. Um, you just have to be very controlled when you're working through your partner and stuff like that because injuries are constant.
Mm.
And this is where jujitsu can be good for you and bad for you. Is with that dopamine rush, and then you're around this like people that are just like your level, and you're just yeah, yeah, and you're feeling high, and you're just feeling this high, and then you get hurt, and then all of a sudden you're below your level. Like you were at this, and like you were at this like high, this tension of like this, but then you were able to like feel that with everybody around you. You're just kind of keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. I can train 2 or 3 times a day, and then I get hurt, and nobody's calling me. There's nobody around. Now I'm just here with my thoughts. I got no fucking dopamine going on in my brain. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to handle this? And like all of a sudden you get really scared because you were just in a community. You had pretty much brothers that were just sweating, bleeding, crying with you on a mat. And then bam, and then they were gone. Now, the reason why I'm even pointing this out is because I went through that. I didn't even get hurt. I just got mentally hurt. I broke, and then I just took like a couple days off, and then I couldn't go back to jujitsu for like a year or two because every time I thought about it, I would have a panic attack and I had to grab my chest and my heart would beat out. Like also my heart would raise to like 114 and stuff like that. And like I had to like I'd like put my head between my legs because it was I don't know what was happening, but I was re-traumaing my brain again through something that I had to be top, I had to be better, I had to be this, and I wasn't that. And so every time I would look at jujitsu or see it or talk to somebody that's training, I would spiral, and it was hard to figure out how to get through a spiral. And whenever something is spiraling you constantly, every time you look at it, um, like your notepad, the problem is like this is where the re-trauma is. Now, a time like this is when you really need to speak to somebody, a friend, somebody that's maybe not even training. Um, your kid, your wife, your kids, your a friend that's not training, an old classmate, and just be like, "Hey, I'm kind of struggling," and they'll when it's just in our nature to help each other. Like when you go join the military, I imagine it wasn't for just self-satisfaction. It
So
was to serve a purpose, right?
it was to serve a purpose, and like you were saying, and it's so. I've heard this so many times in my job, but I also have heard it so many other times with my other buddies, where they leave the service because some of them are being medically separated. Then you also have other people that was, hey, I did my 4 years and I'm done, and they don't realize that those are the people that understood me. Those are the people that loved me. Those are the people that we just, hey, good, let's go have a beer. Let's just go chat. Let's. Am I cutting out on you?
Yeah, it cuts in and out. If you want
Yeah,
to keep
I
going,
have.
it'll cut in.
Okay. And it's the camaraderie. It's the camaraderie with people. And this is why you'll hear veterans say to other vets, hey, I want to be around them because they understand. I want to be around somebody that just gets me, where I don't have to put in 100 like effort. I don't have to be on eggshells the whole time when I'm trying to talk to you. Where the jiu-jitsu community, they make jokes about it where how close you guys get to each other. Like how, hey, we're going to go slap and we're about to get after it. And we're going to meet each other with a lot of violence, but with a lot of love. You're going to
But
put
yeah,
trust, you're going to put trust into a person that they want to see me get better. And they really can freaking hurt me a lot. But at the same time, they're not really trying to hurt me. They're just trying to practice their their defensive skills for the future. when you put your life or you put your body in other people, where you're putting yourself into a vulnerable situation, and those people are the ones that you can always trust on, the ones that you can always talk to about things, and now they're gone, and everybody goes to their own life, and then at the same time, everybody else is struggling as well. I don't say everybody, but there's a huge part of us that is struggling, and we're like, "Ooh, am I the wuss because now I need it?" And this doubt, this shame, this guilt of not being good enough for everybody. It's like, "Ooh, I'm alone." And I want to get back to you in a second, but they say, "How come you come back from Iraq or you come back from Afghanistan, you come back from wherever you are, but why can't you sleep? You're in a safe house." Am I? Am I really? You said that, "Oh, I'm okay up here and I have to be up there." But at the same time, you don't understand. I'd rather have my saw between my legs or my M4 or my M9 underneath my pillow, because then I know I'm okay. I know if I have that dude that's sleeping right next to me, he got my back. He got my back. I don't have to say shit. "Hey, get up. Let's go." Boom. We don't have to actually get into this whole other dialogue. So when you're talking about the jujitsu, and then all of a sudden you're getting injured or you're not being at this level, the other part to it too is that we don't say, "I'm not being seen by a person. I'm not being seen by people that I respect, my peers." I don't know how to say, "Hey, look at me." Well, if you look at me, going back to your kids, ooh, you only going to know Mr. Hyde, and will you actually respect or love Mr. Hyde? Would you love that beast that's in me that has kept me here? And with other people that understand when that beast comes out, oh, Chris is going to do some work today. He's going to
Hmm.
fly. And it's like when that beast is actually seen and not judged, because it was there for a reason. It's there to actually protect you. It's there for you to thrive. And then all of a sudden you have to put the beast away, and you're like, wow, some of the best relationships I've ever had is when that monster came out.
Because
But
exactly. And
and
that's whenever he knew me.
that's what they knew. That was the raw. That was the innocence. That was my primal version. And but then now if you flip it and you actually go to something a little bit healthier, I talk about this at work too, is, you know what? If we are so worried about managing the what ifs, it's hard to actually put this into the perspective. But this is kind of like what Jerry and Gail did, what they were able to help Britain, not Gail, sorry. Jerry and what was the guy's name? Your foster parents.
Uh, you asked a question right there at the end. That's right when it cut out.
Ah, crap. So, what I was gonna say,
Um,
I
keep
just,
going.
no, I just totally
Yeah.
froze. No, it's actually on my end right now. For some reason, the upload is causing
Okay.
issues. What I was saying is that when you're starting to become vulnerable and you're starting to learn that you have that protective skill inside you, that protector, you can meet somebody with love, and you can also be able to protect. And learning how to be soft like water, you're learning how to allow it to happen and not need to be reactive to it.
Yeah. You keep cutting in and out. I gotta go ahead and go, but I think I gotta go ahead and lead off of that. Um, uh, to being soft, like so. Yeah, in that direction. You know, you got to go through that mental breakdown a little bit just to know that like where you were, and it sucks to go through that breakdown, but you kind of got to go through it. Like you gotta let that shell, that hard shell, and some people that shell like is so strong that like you can chip away at it, it don't matter. They only have to like you can't break it from the outside. It's just you got to break it from the inside, and that's the only way to do it. And you got to go through that struggle to open up and then feel that love you were talking about, um, to go in the direction of the love. So I generally don't tell people this, but because I was shown love as a kid, um, and shown that like, not everything is this way, that, me and my wife decided around uh 2011 to foster to adopt. And so we fostered my youngest first, and then we adopted him, and then my oldest. So I have a 14-year-old that we fostered to adopt, and we have an 18-year-old that we fostered to adopt. We also fostered another one that was 17 at the time. He's in Salt Lake City. We also helped my brother, and he stayed at my house for since like middle school through high school, because I was able to, somebody showed me a different direction in that, my beast and stuff like that would just like be like, don't talk to me right now. But it, seeing their love in the process too, like not only just as a kid, but like their forgiveness of like me being angry for no reason, and then them being okay. And I'm like, oh, what a jerk. And then like I had to feel that little bit of like, oh, that hurt, to be like, oh, and then to break a little bit of that shell going out. Um, I did EMDR at one point, and that helped. Um, Seeking help is just, whether it be jujitsu, art, therapy, family. I mean, it's just a must. And like, we're humans. So when you're in a shell, you're by yourself. You're not in a community. As much as like, let's say you're in that shell and you're next to a shell, you guys can knock together, but it has to take that both of those shells to open up to get to know each other. Even the person that you were sitting right there,
Hmm.
that was your buddy, that was right there, that was to save your life, to know that you're okay. You guys had to poke out of your shell a little bit to let each other know that like, hey, we're both human and we're all fine, and like stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, so love does come around. It just takes a minute sometimes to understand what it is, because when you're confused by it and you hide away from it, it just is not a thing. And like, I think it was one of those things that like it put a mindset in my brain that like, because I didn't think about love so much, that like I everything was not permanent. Like I think it was like our second date with my wife in like 2009. I was like, yeah, eventually, we'll either die or break up, it just happens, with everybody. Like I immediately started thinking about the end before the beginning,
Yeah.
just to like protect my brain on like, yeah. I don't know, like it's just another technique to try to like protect myself and stuff like this. Being okay with showing the monster and letting people see it, and people letting you know like, hey, I see that and it doesn't scare me, was really awesome for me. Um, when my wife would see the monster, would see me twitch, and I would see like if she would to touch me in the middle of the night, I almost punched her how many times in the middle of the night just by somebody like gently touching me. Um, and then and then her telling me that when she sees that part of the monster, the really aggressive side, that she's not scared, that she's okay with that, and that made it to where he could still be shown like you were talking about, but he doesn't necessarily need to be active all the time. Now, he can show his face, and I want him to show his face, but he doesn't need to be in control. Like he can just partner with the rest part of me, with the rest of me, and go with it. Go the art direction, or the skateboard with skateboards, or make a painting, or stuff like that, and then we get to destroy our painting that we just made, that I spent 3 months on, and then 5 seconds destroying on it because it felt good. I have artworks like that I literally spent more than 3 months on, and then I would just destroy it because it felt better to destroy it, because that part of me needed to come out.
Hmm.
So
No.
yeah, as we were talking about the other day, and I don't know, I mean, you did notice, and you were um, is my body stance. Is, when I'm about to, like right now, I'm in my house, I'm in an environment. Um, I know certain sounds, I know certain things and feelings that like when something is coming around me. So I'm more comfortable, obviously. But we were in a public setting. And so I had to keep my shoulder pointed at you and and it was fight, I just needed to constantly look around because my I was gonna open up one side, and the other side had to just kind of like, okay, let's let the monster just kind of like do his thing. Let him tell me I'm safe by doing this, so that way this side can open up. It's not necessarily like just open everything and be free. No, you can give and take. Um, and that was mine is keeping my head on a swivel, looking at everybody, making sure I know where everybody is while my shoulder's pointing towards you. You were not a threat to me. You didn't appear to be a threat to me, but having my shoulder pointed in the direction of the person lets my body know that I'm ready. If I'm square framed and I'm just kind of like this, like towards you, it's uncomfortable because it feels vulnerable. Like all of this is, yep, yep. I wanna be like, I want to hide my chin. I don't want you to see my vulnerabilities here. Here's my vulnerabilities I don't want you to see. And so that's okay. And then, you know, once I show this vulnerability, then maybe, this shoulder can be like, well, in time, I could finally like, all right, you know, and then get comfortable. Um, and it takes a minute. you know don't just run to the next person and be like, hey, you know I got beat up a little bit as a kid, it's all right. I mean, it's I say that now because you just kind of like, if you don't laugh about the crazy things in your life, what's the point? Like, if you gotta like just take it, like, and like, I know it's so bad to laugh about it, but getting smacked around as a kid and stuff like that. What else are you gonna do? You're gonna sit there and like grump about it?
Uh,
Letting that beast out, letting him out in different dynamics too. Like maybe not that one. Maybe like the like everybody's in sleep and you're like, all right, you gotta like let it be out and go masturbate in the garage. You know, you gotta do like
yeah,
silly, crazy things in your life will change your perspective. And the reason why I'm talking about something dumb like masturbation is because if you start talking about silly things, it starts changing your perspective on like how serious of a person you are. Because when you're at this level, you kind of like need to be serious and stuff like that. Um, is it working on your end?
it is, but it's actually cutting in and out. So I'm actually looking at my upload. If you can hear me, my upload speed, which is you coming through and me going out, it's starting to cause it to freeze. And I love this conversation that we're having, and I have a feeling we need to get back to it again. We're gonna have to do another part to this. I don't know if you can hear me, but we're definitely going to have to do another part to this.
Yeah, I'm hearing bits and pieces. If you can hear me, we'll work from that, I guess. But I can't hear you sometimes.
So, Chris, I'm going to say that we're going to get back to this at a different time because my internet connection is causing a huge issue. And I will, I'm going to call you when I get off.
All right.
I'm going to call you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Bye.